Today, federal lawmakers are taking West Michigan's toxic water crisis head on. Who's coming to the table to make sure everyone has safe water? And a new push for justice today in a decades-old cold case haunting a West Michigan community. Some of the worst damage is in Jefferson City. The city is just ending a curfew put into effect overnight after a violent tornado ravaged the area late Wednesday night. One man is dead after a shark attack in Hawaii. Authorities say 65-year-old Thomas Smiley from California was swimming about 60 yards from shore when he was attacked. And right now, that short-term plan to fix this situation is to use that Kalamazoo water to flush out the water in Parchment and Cooper Township. Another big question right now, those health concerns. Now, we did hear from a doctor with the Kalamazoo County Health and Community Services. He was saying that exposure to PFAS doesn't necessarily mean that there is a health issue or a health issue will develop. So still, again, a lot of questions in that situation. The last day of the week doesn't usually mean a work day for the legislature, but political reporter Mackenzie Frost says that is not the case today. She looks at why lawmakers are back in Lansing today in this morning's Capitol Rundown. In Denver, a woman spent her Memorial Day weekend connecting with the veteran in West Michigan. When her grandfather died, she came across a set of dog tags that were not his. So she tracked down the tags to a family in Portage. Jamie Thompson says the tags have been missing for nearly 75 years. President Trump is spending this Memorial Day in Tokyo. Day 3 of the president's 4-day state visit to Japan has been a busy one, full of pomp and circumstance, as well as high-stakes talks on security and trade. Eat this, not that. In this week's Doc Talk, the best brain foods for back to school. That's not bad at all. I love whenever you say that. Chances for the beach or the pool.
Because that's really all we care about, right?
It's been so long.
Yeah.
It's time we have our chance. It's not uncommon for young kids to try to climb trees for fun, but one 9-year-old in Washington may have taken it a little too far. The little boy got stuck after climbing more than 50 feet up a pine tree, but couldn't get down, so he yelled for help. Rescue crews came out and connected him to a safety harness to get him to the ground. Firefighters say this little boy was involved in another incident earlier this week, climbing things he shouldn't.
It seems we are finally finished with snow in West Michigan. Knock on wood, right?
However, some other states are not so lucky. South Carolina lottery officials say the single winning ticket was sold in that state.
Are we mad at them or happy for them? Erica's mad, I can tell.
The 17th annual Girls on the Run 5K went through downtown Kalamazoo last night, but one runner captured the hearts of many. 10-year-old Mara Halsey has spina bifida. It's a spinal defect that can make walking and running very tough. However, that didn't stop her from taking on the more than 3-mile course. Many of us have those shoes in our closet that weren't exactly on sale.
How much have you spent on a pair?
Let's not talk about it. My mother is watching. A father teaches his son to shave, not necessarily a moment that garners national attention, but why this advertisement from Gillette is doing just that.
Our own Erica MOKAY. How you feeling? You ready?
I'm feeling all of those emotions and more. I can't even put my finger on the different emotions that I'm feeling. But the people that you're going to see in this story and the people all around us here, they have been training for months. And one thing is for sure, we are ready.
And this case has been nearly 3 years in the making, but let's take a look back at the timeline from that night in February. 6 people were killed and 2 others injured in the shooting spree that spanned Kalamazoo County. It started around 6 p.m. at the former Meadows townhomes off G Avenue near Comstock. Police say that's where Jason Dalton shot Tiana Carruthers several times outside of her home. She was seriously injured while trying to protect a group of kids. After Carruthers was shot, police say Dalton took off. Then a little more than 4 hours later, he pulled into the parking lot of the Sealy Kia dealership in Kalamazoo. That's where father and son, Richard and Tyler Smith, were looking at a car. Authorities say Dalton opened fire, killing them both. 15 minutes after that, police say Dalton opened fire a 3rd time at the Cracker Barrel off 9th Street, killing 4 women and wounding then 14-year-old Abby Koff. The victims were sisters-in-law Mary Jo and Mary L. Nye, Judy Brown and Barbara Hawthorne. Initially, doctors declared Abby Koff dead, but the teens survived. Dalton was caught about 2 hours after that last shooting. It's been almost 3 years of appeals and court decisions since then, including an outburst during his preliminary hearing in May of 2016.
Take it, take it, take it.
During his time in jail, officials say Dalton has been erratic and combative, forcing him to stay in a cell by himself at one point. But today, his case will finally head to trial, and News Channel 3 will be there every step of the way. We will have a crew in the courtroom every day, bringing you live team coverage of what's happening. You can also follow our hashtag #DaltonTrial to follow every development. We'll also be streaming portions of the trial on our WWMT Facebook page. As always, stay with us for complete coverage on air and online at WWMT.com. It's not uncommon for a woman to have dense breast tissue, so take a look at the differences. This is considered a fatty breast, so low density. Now over here in this image, you can see more white. That indicates a higher density. When that's the case, when a woman has dense breast tissue, it can be harder to detect breast cancer with traditional 2D or 3D mammogram. But what about an MRI? That's what researchers at Bronson Hospital are trying to determine, and they're already seeing positive results. Two black and white images. Side by side, they look very similar. But a closer look reveals a potentially life-changing difference.
There are two problems with women with dense tissue. One is that it's harder to see things, and the second is that they have a slightly increased risk of breast cancer.
That's why Bronson Hospital and the West Michigan Cancer Center are participating in a national study looking at breast MRI as a screening tool for women with dense tissue and comparing it to tomosynthesis or 3D mammogram.
MRIs look at the tissue in a different way because we inject contrast material. Tumors usually take up dye. They have blood flow that's different than normal breast tissue, and so that makes them show up almost obvious on an MRI where they could be invisible on a mammogram. So you can see here without the dye, you can't see it.
Dr. Christina Jacobs says the risk associated with a breast MRI is very low for the patient. They're only about a year into the study, but so far, she's impressed with the results locally.
We're getting good quality exams. I'm comfortable with us reading them. They're quicker and easier to read, and we have found one early cancer.
That's one person getting treatment sooner and hopefully one life saved. Here's an example of what doctors were able to see. On the left, you're looking at tomosynthesis. On the right is a breast MRI. We've circled the area of concern on each image. Because of the dense tissue, the cancer is harder to see in the image on the left, but in the MRI on the right, there it is. Again, the hope is to spot these issues earlier. But as the study moves forward, doctors and researchers also hope they'll be able to determine if this process produces false positives, something they don't want for a patient.
If we show that the MRI is finding more cancers at stage 1, stage 0, then you can infer that it's going to be a survival benefit.
So what's next? Dr. Jacobs says this study is actually fairly small. Once patient data is collected nationwide, those results will determine if this is something that should be pursued on a larger scale. It's also important to note that 2D and 3D mammograms are still effective screening tools for all women, including women with dense breasts. But this study is certainly something we will be keeping an eye on. If you are interested, Bronson is currently still looking for women to participate in the study. To learn more, we'll have contact information for you on our website, WWMT.com. In the studio, Erica MOKAY, News Channel 3. In March, cyberbullying will become a crime in Michigan, meaning what you do and say online could put you in prison. In any town, in any school, there's bullying. And as quickly as classes change, so does the way a bully targets a victim.
I think you need to report anytime you feel that something isn't right.
The state echoes that sentiment. Michigan requires each school to clearly state and implement an anti-bullying policy. It's been that way since 2015. Last year, Kalamazoo Public Schools dealt with just over 160 cases of bullying. At Portage Public Schools, just over 100. But we know bullying doesn't stop when the bell rings. Since 2014, OK to Say, Michigan's confidential communication system, received over 1,200 reports of cyberbullying, one of the issues reported most in the state. Assistant Superintendent of Portage Public Schools, Dr. Michael Pasco, says that's where policies can be unclear.
Personally, I've always operated, regardless of where it's happened and when it's happened, if it affects a student and it affects their educational process within our system, we're going to do everything we can to help bring resolution to it.
The data we requested and received from Portage doesn't specify the different forms of bullying investigated, but the information we got from KPS does. School officials there recorded 12 incidents of cyberbullying specifically since 2017. Now, a new law about to go into effect in Michigan could classify those 12 incidents as criminal.
And that's designed to put penalties on people using electronic devices, computers, social media, to say things that are inaccurate about someone else that could cause harm and be considered bullying.
On or off campus, personal or school-issued computer, cell phone or social media. If a student does something to deliberately cause harm, Kalamazoo County Sheriff Richard Fuller says if it's brought to their attention, that student could be held accountable.
It's a 93-day misdemeanor. There's jail penalty with a 93-day misdemeanor to cyber bully someone.
Depending on the situation, that punishment could be worse. We have a lot of resources for you online, including advice for parents in preventing and reporting bullying. You can look for that information with this story on our website, WWMT.com. Erica MOKAY, News Channel 3. A few years ago, David Taylor says he felt stuck in a cycle of bad behavior.
Do I actually want to be here?
Stuck at the Kalamazoo County Juvenile Home.
I know it might look like it's not coming out, but it will.
And then he found a vehicle.
Take those screws, the new screws.
That put him on the right path.
The bike's awesome. I still have it. It's a BMX bike. I can't fit it anymore, but it just reminds me, like, this is where I started. This was the beginning of something new, something different, a change.
David built that bicycle himself. He learned how through an organization called Open Roads and their Earn a Bike program.
And we're not about just coming in and telling them what we think they need to know. We want to make sure that whatever we're coaching them on, like, they feel like it's relevant for their lives, you know?
For 6 weeks, lessons disguised as tune-ups teach kids life and social skills.
You got it?
They're given the tools to become mechanics, able to turn metal parts and plastic pieces into a 10-speed, while at the same time greasing the wheels for future success.
I think if you sit down a group of teenage kids and say, hey, I'm going to teach you some social skills, it's not that exciting, right? You have to have something more incentivizing, and bikes are an awesome vehicle for that because it symbolizes, like, independence and self-sufficiency.
And I feel like Open Roads guided me to, like, see, like, hey, you are not this person, you are not a statistic, you are not a label, you are whoever you want to be. You define yourself. Ninja.
A teen who once defined himself as shy and angry.
Nope, you have to do the arms.
David is now a lead instructor for the program.
How are you doing today?
He says he wanted to give back by helping the kids that remind him of who he once was, and by serving as an example of what he knows they can become.
I expect the kids that I work with to be better than me. I want them to strive to aim higher than I did because I know that they are worth it. Awesome.
Hey,
awesome.
Nice job.
Awesome.